Hi everyone. Welcome to ARINGO's Coffee Chat series. I am Priyanka, joined by ARINGO CEO and admission expert, Turtschanow. Hi, Jenifer.
Hi.
Let us grab a coffee, tea, water, whatever you like, because today we are talking about tackling the timeline crunch. So, right now we are exactly 50 days away from major round one deadlines. So, whether you have just started to think about your MBA applications, if you want to apply, when to apply, where to apply, etc., or you're at a stage that you have done some part, you've started with your MBA application process, maybe looking out for schools, starting with the networking, maybe taken the test or identified the recommenders. Oh, there are a lot of things. So, if you are at that stage, uh, either way, this is the time of the year when panic starts to set in. Budget. We tell our candidates always that 50 days is still a plenty of time to create those stellar, applications that can get you in. But if only if you have the right execution strategy, right?
Yeah. So Priyanka, it's really just completely normal to feel overwhelmed. And I think people that start in June feel overwhelmed. So just take a breath and get ready and buckle in. You will be okay. There's definitely a lot of time for you to get your application submitted. And I don't know that you necessarily need to panic, need to have the energy. Um, but, panic tends to lead to kind of like sloppy applications. So today we're going to walk you through a realistic 50-day MBA application plan, and we're going to break it down into three different phases. So days 1 through 15, days 16 through 35, and then 36 through 50. So everyone is kind of at a different stage. So we're going to look at this from two different angles. Plan A is for those who have already conquered the GMAT or GRE, or maybe are thinking about waivers. And then plan A or plan B is going to be for those who are still chasing the score. And so they're either still looking to take the exam or retake the exam. And so we'll be examining both paths as we go through the chat today. So, all right, Priyanka, let's dive in.
Sure. Um, so let's start with the phase one plan, Jen. So when we are talking about from day one to day 50, the first 2 weeks mainly, let's talk about candidates who need the plan A. The one who have taken the GMAT or are applying with the waiver, like they do not have to worry about the test. That's the kind of pool of people we are talking about here. What is
Yeah.
that they should absolutely do in these first 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a handy dandy PowerPoint that's going to help us go through today. So
Yes.
you'll be able to follow along from home and take screenshots as we go along. So and then if you have questions at the end or you want the the PowerPoint or the plan
Yeah.
emailed to you, we can do that as well. All right, so here we are. We are on day one. If you've just taken your test, your phase one is all about kind of the foundations, right? So, sorry. Let me reorganize something real quick. Sorry, there's still people joining the room. And so I just want to make sure I can see it. Okay, so you're in phase one and we're all about the foundations. So you need to lock in your score. You've already locked in your score and you're starting to define your unique 1% differentiator, and you want to stand out from overrepresented pools, or like figuring out the ways that you can, really present the best authentic you to your to throughout these applications. And so by day 5, you should start shortlisting the right schools and creating a balanced list of maybe 3 to 5 targets. In this phase, You also want to secure your letters of recommendation. So we would just making sure. Do you see, everybody sees this on their screen? Okay, cool. So then we're also going to start with securing recommendation letters. So looking for that outreach and giving your recommenders kind of like a bulleted project brief outlining the exact leadership achievements that you've had, and you want to kind of highlight them for them or give them a cheat sheet. What do you think,
Yes, that
Priyanka?
totally makes
Questions?
sense. Yes, that totally makes sense, Jen. Helping the recommenders, don't keep them in blank mode. Okay, just they'll think and they'll write on their own. And if you don't give them cheat sheet, they might also tempt to use AI and work on. Then your recommendation letters might become generic. So to help yourself for your applications, do this extra step and help your recommenders. Give them what do you want your applications to, what you want to get into your applications. All right. So this is for plan A, Jen. What about people who are still taking the test? I mean, they have a test date coming up in next few weeks. How should they tackle this phase one of their application? What should be they looking at it so that they don't fall behind?
Yeah, so here is kind of the map for the first 15 days for Plan B. So this is, you have to balance out the GMAT prep. And so you want to start diving into the high yield subject section, and you want to, work on your error log. And then on the other side for your applications, you want to start looking at your recommenders and outreach and talking to them. And then you also want to start thinking about your stories and mapping out kind of like your core professional and extracurricular stories that you want to share all at the same time. So you can kind of do that in between during your study breaks. Or you can, sometimes you can, I say study breaks.
All right. That helps. So you need to do a parallel thing. Obviously, focus more towards the test preparation, as Jen said, but do not keep the applications, waiting to start only when you have the score. You have some things that you can start straight away in parallel and, give like 20-30% of time towards it, but good 70% time towards your test. And Jen, before we move further, I would just want to tell everyone that, keep typing in your questions in the chat box here. Towards the end of the session, we will try to take each and every question. So you can just start typing in and we'll take towards the end. All right. Thank you. Let's move, Jay, from day 1 to 15 to day 16 to 35. Now, this is the time when pressure, will start to ramp up because you would be at the stage, it will be like somewhere from August starting to mid-August, and the deadlines. I know a lot of schools have deadlines in on September 9th and early September as well. So
Yeah.
what is the time? Yeah, this is where I guess the most heavy lifting would start of
Yeah.
their application plan. Yeah.
Yeah, so this phase two is kind of like the core build. So you're re-engineering your resume to kind of spotlight your impact and the scale and the dynamic of your leadership rather than those day-to-day tasks or your responsibilities. So you want to quantify everything and move into drafting your heavy-hitting foundational essays. And I would say that the biggest tip for writing compelling essays here is to focus on raw authenticity and vulnerability. And you want to avoid the sterile kind of corporate or technical jargon really entirely, right? And then you should also be doing a bit of that deep culture check to make sure that, you're kind of matching the vibe of the school and that you are kind of hitting on that personality. Like each one of these schools have their own personality. And so you want to make sure that they feel that coming through. And so you can do that with like informal coffee chats, conversations with others, with students. I think like the generic like admissions presentations are kind of okay, but you want to get a little bit more in depth to be able to make sure that it's like a good fit for you, good fit for them, and that you're kind of emulating that in your essays.
That totally helps. Yes. So even you have this course, you can focus more on these parts, the core essays. Jennifer, can you please also help students to guide a bit? What are these core essays what are these core essays that, specific essays that we're talking about here?
Yeah. So with those essays, I mean, I think that we're going to be talking about the
The general
the
core essays that we talk, why the school kind of.
yeah. So a lot of the time, those core essays are going to be why MBA, why now. They're going to be looking at why our school. How do you feel like you're going to contribute? So those are really the core essays that many of these schools are going to be looking for throughout each one of these applications. And I guess all of
I
them
guess
should be somewhat similar, but then tailored to each one of the schools. And this year we have seen that a lot of the schools have adapted their application so that you're not using AI. And so, like, when I talk about like not using corporate speak or jargon, not being sterile, this is where they're saying, we want you to write your essays. We don't want you to use ChatGPT to write them. We want you to write them. And with that, they get to know the real you versus what, not even what you think they want to know, but more of like what ChatGPT thinks they want to know.
that's true. I know we get a lot of candidates every year, not every year, this time to be specific, who are very tempted to use AI, but please, it will do more harm than good if you directly use it for an essay language and etc. Don't use it. Be you. And schools are, they want to hire, they want to, give admission to you as a human. So focus on that. Let's move, Jennifer, to our Plan B candidates for this phase, the phase two. People who are taking GMAT, GRE. So, what is their part? I mean, what are the things they need to focus on at this point in time?
Yeah, so this is kind of like that critical pivot. So if you hit your target score and on the exam number one, right? Like your first one or whatever's most recent, you can immediately start pivoting over to plan A, right? Like, and start following that plan along. But if you need a retake, and you can schedule it 16 days out, but you have to step away from test prep a little bit for a few hours or maybe a day, kind of figure out what works best with the way you block your time. But you want to lock in some time to, really focus on your resume. And then you want to start translating the notes that you brainstormed in the last phase and start making it into structured essays, or at least outlines, right? So those outlines are going to help making writing in the next phase a lot easier.
Yes. So yeah, if you've taken the test, pivot to plan A, candidate's plan. Okay. But if you taken the test, the score is not up to the mark, as or no, it's not close to what you were scoring in your mock test, etc. Keep focusing on test, but then you need to focus on your application parts also more than the phase one that you were doing. Moving ahead, the final phase, Jen. So I want to talk about both the things here. What the plan A candidates should do. And also I want to talk about what mistakes they can do because it's towards the end, they're closer to the deadlines. Are there some common mistakes that they do at this stage?
Yeah, I would say that one of the most common mistakes that people have is kind of neglecting the application portal. Um, this There's a lot of questions in there, and sometimes it's not just biographical, like the boring blah blah blah, like put your resume components in here, but it's also sometimes there's short essays that are in there that you need to be able to also tackle. So go ahead and open that up and start working on it. And so for plan A, phase 3 is all about customizing and then assembling, and being able to tailor your core narrative and, the be able to work on these secondary prompts that you might see within the portal itself. A huge tip for staying organized is being able to meet every deadline is to plan your final submission 28 or sorry, I'm nervous for you. But to start planning to submit within 24 to 48 hours before the deadline so that you feel really comfortable with your submission and getting things in on time. And it gives you time for any errors or things like that, because it happens every round that there's this technical thing that happens and somebody's submitting at 11:59 p.m. and there's no tech department around to help save you. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I have to email them. And then you're like, but did I make the deadline or did I not? Right. So safest bet is to start with the plan of submitting a day or two ahead of time. If you're in plan B and still working on your exam, you're doing these progressively with your essay drafting, from your outlines and kind of working through this final push for GMAT and finalizing your scores so that you can kind of try to hit those class averages from the class profile. So that's kind of what this phase is mostly about.
Thanks, Jen. And very rightly said, open your applications, see the portal, see the actual questions, not the essay questions, the short answer questions. And we actually see, what the example that Jen gave, that yes, because a lot of people are submitting during that time, their servers are heavy, some issues generally creep in, or sometimes your credit card is not working. You would not know what can happen at that moment. So it's always good, be ready with everything. You have everything in there. So plan according. In fact, I would also recommend that, for whatever schools that you have finalized, make an Excel sheet or something that, write their deadlines. And sometimes the deadlines are not 11:59 as well. Sometimes it's evening 5.
Yeah.
It's a different time zone.
5
Okay.
p.m.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A lot of schools have 5 p.m. deadlines as well. So, you are under the impression, oh, I have time till 12,
Yeah.
11:59. But no, you have to not. So don't only see the date, see also the time when, when's the last time, what is the last time of the deadline as well. So make an Excel sheet. A little bit of effort there will save a lot of anxiety and last moment issues. So that's what I'll say. So we have talked about all the phases here, Jen. But I want to bring in one more question. Let's say, especially with Plan B candidates, I guess they would more relate to this question, that if they feel, let's say, day 36 or somewhere, that the test scores are not up to the mark and they don't think they have time and they have a feel that, they're rushing through the essays, etc. Uh, what should they do? Should they still go ahead and apply? And, because everybody say, you should apply to round one, that's the best, time, etc. But so if they are in the dilemma, what should they do?
Yeah. So I would say if you get to like day 36 and realize that you're overwhelmed, or that things are starting to feel rushed and you still have the GMAT to take and 60 points to gain, all of that, I would say it's important to really consider round two. I know there's still time there. Most of these schools have 3, maybe 4 different application rounds. And so if you don't submit in round one, it's not the end of the world, right? That could be one thing. The other thing that you could think about instead of pivoting to round two could be that maybe you consider submitting to schools with application with the GMAT GRE waivers, right? Because those are definitely an option that are very viable. Still this season, schools have continued to offer them. Top schools, NYU, Cornell, Tuck, Anderson, Darden. There's a lot of them that have, kind of the waivers or they accept the executive assessment. So there's definitely some alternatives if you're like, I really need to submit in round one for whatever reason, like this is what I'm doing, then maybe it's thinking, okay, is the GMAT or the GRE the right fit for me? And should I try something else?
Thanks, Jen. That helps, I guess. That also gives clarity to a lot of students. Okay, apply to round one, that's awesome, but don't submit rushed applications or the application that you're not satisfied with. You know, if you can do better, if you know your mock test scores were amazing, but your official test scores are below average of your target schools, consider taking a waiver or apply to round two. But do not submit the application that you are not confident about. Okay, let's move to our question and answer round, Jen. I'll start from the beginning. We have the question from from Ananya. Hi, Ananya. So her question is, Jen. Hi, thank you for hosting this. What should a recommended cheat sheet typically have, since there are a few fields that require qualitative responses versus rating-based questions?
Yeah, so I would say that if you have gone through any sort of like annual review with your boss or previous boss or supervisor, whatever that might be the best place to start. And so I would work on that and kind of organizing it and giving them. Now, if that's available, fantastic, and you're really set, right? You're like, oh my gosh, look, I have all these calculations already here where I was like, give me a raise. So if you don't have that, then start taking your resume, and I would almost say like kind of put it into a table, and to the right hand side, start looking at these roles and what you've done, and be able to make sure that they kind of know the story behind it in one way or another. And if there was any specific moment where you maybe were recognized for your leadership, teamwork, or like this was the thing that got you that promotion, those are the things that you want to put on the cheat sheet so that they can see that. The other thing might be that maybe you have years of work experience somewhere else and your recommender isn't as familiar with it. So they need to see your career build or trajectory. And so you can, give them a little bit of a synopsis of what's been happening in your past and how you got to where you are. And so sometimes that's a cheat sheet, or maybe that's like taking them out to coffee or tea and having a sit down to just kind of give them an explanation of who you are and what you're wanting to do, and kind of connect the dots as to, why you're pursuing an MBA. And that'll make it easier for them to figure out what they want to include in your recommendation letter.
Thanks, Jen. That helps you. I think, Ananya, that helps you answer your query. Next question we have from Rishi. Hi, Rishi. His question is, any additional details on strategies to shortlist 3 to 5 schools and how to identify the differentiator?
Okay. So this is a lot of fun and obviously something I get excited about. But I would say that the first thing is kind of looking at where your profile is. And even better than that is to first determine what it is that your short-term and long-term goals are. If they're very heavy on sector, industry, or function, see if there's certain schools that kind of identify with those the most. And we have a list of schools by specialization on our website, and that could be a really good guide. And those are it's going to list like schools that are in the top 15, 17, top 10, 15, 20, and maybe even 50, depending on how they're ranked for that specialty thing that you're really looking at. And so I would use that as the first guide. Next, you can look at rankings, and then would start looking at class profiles to see kind of where you kind of fit in as far as like years of work experience, where your GMAT GRE score might land. And then from there, you want to start to pick some schools that are a little bit above, some that are going to be your target, and some that might be safer. And so that's kind of the best way to balance a school list so that you have the best odds of landing an offer for that fall.
Yeah, or maybe multiple offers.
Yeah,
Choose from.
exactly.
Thanks, Jane. And also, the question is also about identifying the differentiator. So, can you help with that and how a
Oh,
person can
yeah.
identify their unique differentiator as well?
Okay, yeah. So I think that this kind of goes along with the school list. Each one of these schools has a vibe. And so what it is about you that matches these schools that you're looking at would be important, right? So, and I feel like I was just talking about this earlier today about finding this thread that really helps identify your path and what makes you unique. So, looking at whether that's your foundational story of like as a kid or as an adult or during college, or even it could have started in that first role that you had, that you made this connection of, I'm really good at this, or this is something I'm really passionate about, and how that connects with what you have done or accomplished, and then how that relates to the MBA. So I think like those are what I would call like differentiators. Any other advice you might have, Priyanka?
I don't think, I think that's what it is about. Yeah, your unique difference. It's, you specifically if you're from overrepresented pool, okay, how you can stand apart from other people, and as Jen well said, how you can sync it with the school's culture, because some are collaborative, some are competitive, some are more, a lot of then they go into experiential learning, and you have some inclination towards. There's a lot of things. Every school is different. Okay, so yeah, find a sync, find that school fit, and that's how you find your differentiator as well, maybe. Okay, next question, Jen, we have from Bhavita. It's a very common question that I saw in the registration forms. Would you recommend candidate giving test on 15th August, or will it be too late for round one?
Now, Priyanka, you might know this a little bit more technically than I do, but I think 15th of August is plenty of time for your exam score to be able to be reported, right? Um, I would say like even for like for GMAT, business schools have access to your scores. If they have your name as an applicant, they can go in and they can access them. So, like if things don't align for them to get reported on time, there's a kind of an alternative way. If you're doing the GRE, that's not an option for B schools. So you definitely have to make sure that you take them by the date so that your scores will arrive by the time that by the deadline. So I think you should be fine with August 15th, as long as you're already working on your applications. I don't think you like take your exam on August 15th and then start working on your applications. That's going to be just too much of a tight squeeze for the round one deadlines. So, usually I tell candidates that you can start working on things, like even with our consultants, that you can start working on them, and then, do your studying in between and you can kind of pivot between the two, and then take a pause like the week or a couple of days before your exam so that you can focus strictly on that, and then pick it back up when you're done with your exam.
Right. So yeah, Pavita, be comfortable taking the exam at by August 15, but follow that plan B that we are talking about. There's a lot of things that you can do even if you don't have your score. You can, as we say, identify recommenders, help with, help them. You can start working on MBA resume. That's gonna change. Not gonna change, whatever your scores are or whatever school that you decide on. Okay. So start working on components so that you don't get overwhelmed once you have the scores. And you have done the hard work of taking the test by August 15. Apply in round one. Don't get that wasted. Okay. Next question, we have Jenifer from Siddhan, and he has three set of questions. I'll start from the first one. Hi, Siddhan. Suppose we apply in the later round, say third or fourth, Does a chance of getting scholarship waivers get reduced? Okay.
Yes.
Second question is, if we don't obtain scholarship, how do we finance our MBA and is it really worth it considering the current market? And third is, what is a safe score for GMAT Focus Edition if aiming for top 10 business school? Do let us know.
Okay, lots of questions. So first of all, I mean, I think that we talk a lot about round one and round two with scholarship, but by round three and four, scholarship definitely has been mostly allocated, right? There are still chances that somebody from round one or round two would decline their offer, even if they like put in a deposit and then declined it during round three, that money will go back into the pot. But I would say that most of the scholarship money has already started to be divvied out, and they're going to give it to the most rewarding, or they're going to reward the best candidates to try to retain them. So I wouldn't wait until round three or four if you're really scholarship dependent. Um, we can talk about some alternative timelines. There's a lot of schools that actually start in January. So you could look at those instead and think of like January of 28 instead of fall 2028, 27, and plan a little bit differently. Okay. Um, Now, if you don't obtain scholarship, most people will finance their MBA through loans. And there's a couple of different companies. One is Juno and the other one is Nomad Credit that I know of. And then there's some credit cards like Discover that will help with financing the loan. Juno and Nomad for sure help with negotiating group rates for MBA candidates for top programs, and they have ways of potentially not having to have a cosigner and things like that. I am not an expert in financing the MBA, so I don't want to pretend that I know everything. But if you need connections to those resources, let me know. I can help you with that. But those are kind of the ways that people are funding their MBA, either savings, getting a scholarship from the school, or through loans. And then what is the safe score for GMAT Focus Edition for the top 10? So this can change, based on your background and academics and things like this. But I will say the average for the top 10 MBA programs can range from 645 to 675. So that's the average, right? So some of them are a little bit lower, some of them are a little bit higher, depending on where you are in that scale. And they do accept a range, usually about 30 points. So, give and take in different directions of, how your score can balance out. I think some of that comes down to what your academic background looks like. If you have a quantitative heavy background, STEM background, that can also help with balancing out maybe a slightly lower than average GMAT score as well. I think that was all of them.
Well, there's still one part. Is MBA worth considering,
Oh,
as the current market?
I
There's
think it
one
really
hidden question.
depends. It depends on what you're wanting to do, right? So beyond, I think it just really depends on what your goals are, right? So you can easily look at the employment reports of all of these schools and see where people are headed. And I would look at people that have similar profiles to you, where they graduated from, and what schools they went to. Or I'm sorry, let's put this more specifically. People with similar identities or functions, somebody who identifies with you professionally. And maybe also because of the current geopolitics, I would also look at their nationality. So if they're Indian, you want to look at somebody who is also Indian and see what their career options were and where they were able to go. And then you can also kind of look at the salary that they're making and see if that feels like a good return. I would say that a lot of the times the employment reports are from a year previous, so you don't really know what's happening right now. So I would make connections either with people that are current students, and so they kind of have they know what's going on, or recent grads, right? Because they just went through it. So find a way to connect with some students or recent alum and find out what's going on with recruitment for the specific job that you're interested in. And Priyanka, you know, this is my favorite thing. So to
Networking.
connect with these people, I would say that you want to network and look for student clubs that are kind of related to either your industry or function, and make connections through those clubs, because people are more likely to respond to you if you can make that connection. So
Thanks, Jen.
that's,
I think that all
it takes
answers
some
all parts of the
research.
question. And Siddhant, if you have more questions, you can see Jenifer calendar's link here on the screen, along with Jenifer's email ID as well. Jennifer, if you can please copy paste your calendar link in the chat
I
box as
will.
well, and yeah, share your resume, share your score, share a specific profile. We can give you more tailored advice, and how you can start working your MBA applications, from now onwards. Okay, coming up, we have next question from Ananya. Would you recommend the same resume format for every school, or should it or does it need to be tailored with every school?
So this is a tricky question, right? Because some schools say, oh, we have a format, we want you to follow this, or, we suggest using this. Now, what you really need to do is to, one, either come up with a common resume template that you're using for all schools, but do not use one school's template for another school. They know those templates. And so it's a dead giveaway that you're not my number one choice if I'm using somebody else's resume template to apply to your school. So I would say a lot of people have recently had some resume reviews from Priyanka. And if you need a template or a format to follow, we have a template that I'm happy to share, that all of our clients use. And the only other thing I would say about this is that you also, let's say that like you're deciding to apply to INSEAD. INSEAD does ask for a very specific section about international experience. So just make sure that it's included in your resume. So if they have a format, look at their format, see if there's anything missing or a section missing from your resume template that you're using. And if so, then integrate it into what you already have, or go through the trouble of converting it to their specific resume. Up to you.
Thanks, Jen. Next question. Again, we have multiple questions from Rishi Parekh. So first is, how do I ensure my essays cover weaknesses, items not covered in recommendations, not having ECs, having two jobs in only 3 years, etc. So these are the weaknesses you want to cover in the essays, and how you should go about it. Next is, as a consultant from MBB, how does R1 versus R2 chances of moving forward of interview changes? And also, how does a waiver affect chances?
Okay, lots of questions here. So as far as covering your weakness, I'm just going to say that maybe one weakness, especially since we're talking about waivers, is probably your quantitative score. And so the way that we would, help somebody who has a lower quantitative background or score is by figuring out how you integrate that in the resume, as well as the answers to your question of or the essay responses, to integrate what quantitative work you have done, and the quantitative work, the analysis, and the critical thinking part, right? Like you want to put it all together for them in a bit of a package. And so you do need to tell a bit of a story. But I would also look at your resume, right? Like, so your bullet points should show or flex those components of your job so that you're reassuring them, hey, even if my quant score is lower, that I'm able to, operate at this level, and I do this on a daily basis in my current job. As far as extracurriculars, let's say that you are an MBB consultant and you work and travel quite extensively. One of the easier things to do is to maybe quickly join an internal club. So like if your firm has, their own Toastmasters, you can join that. And then there could easily be some assumption of longevity by vaguely mentioning it. And then if you're not really able to, then I would say you want to flex your undergrad ECs. And then in the application, make sure that you somehow reference that you're really excited about joining specific clubs or activities that aren't generic like the consulting club, but more specific to you, and say, like, these are the things I'm looking forward to doing when I get on campus. And so you kind of reaffirm, like, hey, I get that I haven't done a lot extracurricular because of my job. And they'll understand that too in some cases. And so you build it in to reassure them that, like, hey, like, I look forward to being, a contributing part of this community. Consultants. Round one versus round two, I don't know that there's that big of a difference. I think that it depends on how well your application is written and if it's ready versus not ready for round one. With 20 years of experience, I can tell you that we would prefer for you to submit a well-written application in round two versus a sloppy one in round one or rushed. And then waiver, how does that affect chances? So if you are applying to a school that offers exam waiver, they're going to be looking for this evidence of how you can demonstrate mostly quantitative skills. They'll also want to see the verbal and critical thinking, etc. They'll want to see all of that. So you need to make sure that you're demonstrating it. If they offer waivers, then it means that for the most part, they're going to consider you amongst the others if they feel like you met that threshold for sharing or demonstrating that you have the skills that are needed. So it could, maybe impact it. And sometimes waivers can impact scholarship too. So a lot of the times merit scholarship really is how you bring the school's average or ranking up. And that is one of the ways is by having an above average GMAT or GRE score.
Thanks, Jen. I think we have covered all the points here with Rishi. And Rishi, since you have specific questions on your weaknesses, extracurriculars, job shifts, etc., I would strongly say, book a session with Jen, and get detailed advice. It is the session would be much more productive when we have your resume and we can answer your queries then. Next, we have from Harshal. Hi, Harshal. Do we have a better chances of scholarship in round one? And I haven't really started working on my application yet. GMAT scheduled in first week of August. Is round one doable? Jen, I can help with this question. So yes, Arshad, as we've discussed with other candidates as well, first week of August, yes, round one is perfectly doable, considering you are doing a parallel preparation of both test and application. Cover some groundwork right now, so that immediately after you have your test course, you can, as we say, you can pivot to the plan A that we have just discussed in this session. So you can do that. Chance of scholarship, yes. Round one has a bit higher scholarship now because they have the entire set of finances to give the money to give to candidates, and so obviously the better chances are there. But as we keep on saying, sloppy application is a big no-no. So create good applications and only then submit. But yes, round one is doable if you have a date in first week of August and you are parallelly working on your applications. Coming next, we have a question from Pedro. Hi, Pedro. Are there better acceptance rates for round one, or do I have the same chance of getting into a top school in round two? We have a different question here.
So I would say the difference between round one and round two for schools that have 3 or more rounds is very similar, right? Like, so they're going to maybe have like a 10% higher admission rate during round one than round two, but it's not that different compared to round two, but drastically different in round three and round four. So you definitely want to submit during those 2 rounds, especially as an international student applying to top schools. I would say it's a little, okay, let me say that opinion is based on US top schools, right? Because they're very dependent on visas getting finished and completed as early as possible. And so that usually they want that process to start in March, April, which means you need to be admitted by January, or well, not by January deadline timeline. For other schools in Europe and UK, visas aren't as big of an issue. And the issue time is not as long. So they do tend to have a little bit flatter admission rates between 1, 2, and 3. And then HEC Paris is its own craziness with 10 rounds. So yeah,
It's more
HEC
of a
Paris is a
rolling
little bit different.
admissions that they have, it feels
Yeah.
like. Alright. Next question we have from Shantanu. Hi, Shantanu. Thanks for the session. And how does it affect my application if I focus on highlighting one or two, I call it, accomplishments versus packing as many as possible, like career picks, etc. So, what is better?
Um, so I guess the biggest thing is that's hard to know without a conversation. So please book a time and let's chat about it more specifically. But I would say, like, if you are talking about getting the like pat on the back awards or, you know, I don't know. Like, so if they're more like employee versus job related, then that might not be the best, right? Like, I think it depends on the quality of these accolades or accomplishments to decide if they outweigh the accomplishments of your job. But I would say it's more likely that you're going to want to be um, more heavy on deliverables of what you've done professionally. That's what an MBA program is looking for. What have you done? What have you accomplished? What have you experienced that you can share in the classroom with your candidate, like with your peers? Whereas, you know, a pat on the back or I don't even know. But anyways, like if it's not necessarily super job related, then I wouldn't like pack it with those things that feels like fluff. Um, Although like if you were like ranked as the top employee of a huge corporation, maybe I would add that, right? Like, I don't know. But you know, here's the thing is that I don't want you to be too afraid of is that there are places in the application form that you can include those accolades and accomplishments in the application form. You don't have to have them on your resume. So, you know, that's usually like one of the sections when we're trying to find space to state a one-page resume is, okay, these can actually have a place in the application form, like additional languages, certifications, those types of things. There's actually a place in the application form online for you to put those in there. So it's a balance, but I would go with what you've accomplished that has to do with your function in your role.
There's actually a very good strategy that Jenny you have mentioned that in the application portal you do have space for this. So the brightest, the biggest achievement can go in the resume part, and not so bigger achievement. I would say every achievement is good, but you can still take it to the application portal part. And Shantanu, as Jen said that the question is a bit subjective. When we have the actual accomplishments with us in front of us, we would be able to guide you better. Next question we have from PK. Hi, PK. Thanks for the session. Would we be able to get the recording of the session and the PPT shared for later reference? Yes, you will get the plan. You will get the recording as well. So don't worry about it. And the next question is, would it affect the application if there are no extracurriculars as such? It's a very common question, and we are getting today for
Yeah.
extracurriculars.
So, what you need to know is extracurriculars help a school envision how you're going to interact and contribute to their school. So, if they don't have that evidence from your extracurriculars, you need to be able to show that in some other way of being able to make up for this by being maybe really team oriented in some of your bullet points. I mean, your hobbies, those types of things can also count. So, you might not have volunteered consistently at one place, but maybe you organized, a soccer league or a cricket league or something like that, right? So you can use that as your extracurriculars. It doesn't have to be volunteer only or like the super uber leadership oriented stuff. It can be even recreational. They're wanting to see how you're going to contribute. They want to see your leadership skills. They want to see how you're a team player. And like I would say like I was talking to somebody earlier today who said that they were training for a marathon. So whenever you say that and put it on your resume, for me as an AdCom member, things that I'm going to start to immediately associate with somebody who's a marathon runner is that you have to plan, that you have endurance, that you have grit, right? And that you have to plan these things out. So there's just some assumed characteristics that come from just seeing marathon runner. So just think about it from that perspective and how they can kind of extrapolate data from that as well. If you do not have an extracurricular section and you don't have anything to share in that way, then let's talk about the optional essay as well. So some professions it makes sense. Like if you are a consultant, somebody who has like a high level of travel, maybe somebody who's moved around quite a bit, or like investment banking, something like that, like where it's just a really intense schedule, then, or like let's say that you work with an office that's, the opposite time frames of, you're working with the London office or you're working with the California office, and that's your evening time, like your free time is, you know, at a weird time and it doesn't line up for these extracurriculars, then that's, worth a conversation or writing a couple lines in your optional essay.
Thanks. I think, Vicky, that helps the answer the question. Use optional essay, but if you can work on ACs, you still have time. You can pick something. You might have some opportunity at your office as well. Maybe some CSR activity, maybe some team building activity. You can start something. It's never too late.
Yeah.
Next question we have from Ariana Khan. Hi, Ariana. Would you recommend that an applicant who has 88th percentile GMAT score, still below average for target top 10, and a below average GPA, apply in round one, or retake the GMAT and apply in round two?
This answer, like there's, again, it's subjective, but I would say, are there points on the table? Do you feel like if you retake the GMAT that you have room for improvement, or you've taken it, and not you specifically, but I've talked to people who are like, I've already taken it 4 times and I keep getting the same score and I'm kind of done with this. And so then we can kind of talk about, okay, so then one, there are waiver schools, or two, you could apply with a lower score and potentially a lower GPA, but you have to be exceptional in the other areas to kind of make up for that. A school, they're going to have their own rubric of how they measure all the candidates. And it's a sliding scale for each one of the points. So academics is one, but let's say that your leadership is off the charts, or your professional experience is off the charts, or maybe the reason that your GPA is low is, or lower, is because of starting your own business while you were in college. Different stories, right? So you can have this incredible story that can make up for a lower GMAT score, and maybe a lower GPA as well. So it just depends really on kind of what your ability is to, make a higher score or not. And if not, then let's put everything we can in that round one application, because then they have more time to admit other candidates that will balance out your average, like your score in the average.
Yeah, and as Jen said, Ariana, again, very subjective question. We do not know your GPA, we do not know your GMAT exactly, and what kind of target schools, what your resume has. To balance those things out, maybe you might still be able to apply to round one, schedule a session, get a call done with Jenifer, and plan ahead accordingly. Next, we have a question from Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia. Can you please repeat the average range of GMAT score? I think it's talking about the top
Yeah.
schools. What's the
And
average?
Ariana answered that for them. So 645 to 675 is right about the average for these T10, M7, HSW schools. And then for
Thank you, Ariana.
GRE, it usually is 320 plus. So hopefully that's helpful, Grant.
So that answers Grant's question as well for the GRE 320 plus. Let's see. Would it make a difference if we apply in round two, especially for the top Indian B schools? Jennifer, I can help you answer this question. Uh, as you mentioned, applying in round two does make a difference. But when you say you're applying to top Indian B schools, I'm assuming you are Indian as well, because most of the Indian candidates apply to Indian B schools. So rounds don't usually matter a lot when you are a domestic applicant. Okay, so apply when you think your application is strongest. So round one, round two would not matter much if you are a domestic applicant, but it does matter when you are an international applicant for a particular school. Um, we have like 1 2 minutes to go, but we would try cover the questions that we have right now. Tejas, we have a question from Tejas Jain. Hi Tejas, should we explain any C grades in additional essays if GMAT is at 100%? I mean, we have got the top score, but do we need to explain a bad grade?
No, I think that you're fine. Like C's are not a problem. I think like if there were F's and you failed a class, that's where you maybe want to discuss it or cover it. But otherwise, I would say you're fine because your GMAT score answers any questions they might have.
Okay. Uh, Next question, Jen, we have from Grant. Would you advise if I apply for a test waiver because of my strong quantitative background just to apply for round one? And after I submit my test scores, which I intend to take the exams by August ending. So applying with a waiver and then take the exam. What do you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's good to go ahead and get like if you're in the spot like where you're like, okay, look, this is it's not necessarily going to happen that I'm going to get my score where I need it to be, but I'm ready to submit, then yeah, go for it. Submit for the waiver. And then you always have the opportunity to still submit it afterwards. So I will say that every school has a different policy as to whether they review it after the deadline. So if you submit the score before their deadline and you had requested a waiver, then they'll take that into consideration. But if it's after the deadline, it's a little iffy if they'll accept it. But I think you're completely fine if it's close to their average or better.
Thanks, Jen. We have a question from Elias Cillian. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Could you give some tips in admission process for a candidate who is coming from a family business background or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so family business and background, and we can definitely talk offline as well. But what you want to do is to demonstrate the leadership. That's the number one thing that we kind of assume is that you've had to do more than just your typical role. So you want to include that in there. Then you want to also include how that impacts your future. So are you planning to be part of the family business? Then talk about why the MBA is important. If you're the only one in your school, in your family who's going to business school, and you're the one who's going to, in line to be the CEO, awesome. Or maybe you're going to start your own division. Those are the things that are going to, matter most. Then I would say the other thing that is key for, family business or entrepreneurship is connect it to why this school is the most important school for you. The Family Business Center, the Entrepreneurship Center, the Entrepreneurship Cell, whatever it might be, do the research for that school and connect the dots for the school to say, this is why you're my number one school, because of this.
Thanks, Jane. We have another question from this candidate. Will my work experience be evaluated as the application date or the date I enroll in the program in the top B school?
Either or, it's going to be the same. I mean, not the same date, but they're going to have the same information, right? So the real question is are they asking you, are you meeting the kind of like threshold of we usually are looking for candidates with 2 or more years of work experience at time of application. So if you have less than 2 years at time of application, you have some ground to prove yourself of readiness for an MBA. And then, kind of on the other end, if you're at the, closer to 8 to 10 years, you need to show why now is the right time, that you are able to get a job, that you're not applying for jobs that typically recruit for candidates that are under 30, etc. So That's really the thing that you need to pay attention to. Beyond that, when you fill out the application form and they ask you those questions, it's they're generally going to put there specifically how many years of work experience do you have now or at the time of matriculation.
Okay, thanks, Jay. So we're just taking last two questions because we are done with the 1 hour mark here. So just taking last two questions in case you have, please schedule a session. Jane will answer you directly. Email her, schedule a session, give her a resume, and go ahead. Yes, quickly, Jane. We have another question from Sami. Are B schools going to consider the GMAT super score?
They will. I think that they can't avoid it. It's part of the report now. It is going to probably be something that maybe isn't like a true deciding factor. Like they're not going to rank you against somebody else's super score, so to say, and compare it to everybody else. But they're going to take it as additional information for consideration, which is helpful for a candidate who maybe did well on one side or one exam on this or one exam on that and vice versa. And then it combines to make a better super score. So I think for right now, it's going to be informational just to help them with better make decisions.
Thanks, Jay. And we have another question from Sylvia. How to frame if I'm currently unemployed, but in an entrepreneurship program plus leading extracurriculars?
So add the entrepreneurship program as your current role, I believe. That's probably the best idea. And then the optional essay. So that would be, what's going to be important is filling in the blanks for them. You never want an admissions committee to make an assumption. You always want to tell the story. So control the narrative of here's, I stopped I stopped my work so that I could join this entrepreneurship program full time. I'm also doing X, Y, and Z, all for the betterment before my MBA.
Thanks, Jen. And here we wrap up our very interactive coffee chat session. There's some lovely questions we had, and we covered a lot of ground today. So as I kept on mentioning, please schedule a call with Jen. You can talk about your profile. You can talk about your customized, 50-day plan. What suits you? What suits your needs? At what stage you are in your application, and Jen can guide you on that. Also, I want to tell you about our next coffee chat session as well. So it would be a very interesting one. It will be getting into top MBA programs with the low GMAT and maybe with a GMAT waiver. So if you're applying with a GMAT waiver, we'll talk about how you can apply for a waiver, what changes in your application, what admissions committee need to see when you are applying with a waiver. So a lot of discussion we would be doing about waivers and low GMAT score. So I would recommend apply there. And that was an incredible session. Jen, any final thoughts? Anything you want to add on?
No, it's a lot. Okay. So there's a lot going on here. A lot of people are stressed. So it's not uncommon. So take a deep breath. You guys are kind of in it together. And if you want help, there is help available. ARINGO, we help with clients on many different levels between like full scale, like, hey, I am focused on my GMAT. I don't want to have to worry about every component of the application. Help me. And so we just do the comprehensive program. Or you're just like, okay, look, I'm doing this all by myself, but I want a little bit of like a gut check or I want some guidance. Any of those kind of ways, we're here to help. So I'll include that in my follow-up email, which will include a link to the session from our YouTube. And then I will also include the plan so that you can have that. But if you have any questions, I'm here to help and I look forward to meeting you guys.
Yes. All right. Bye everyone for now. And happy essay writing and prepare for the test. Whatever stage you are, we are rooting for you.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Priyanka. Bye, everybody.